Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the AirTight Networks presentation at Wireless Field Day 7. Today we have, a great lineup of sessions, and in many ways, actually, the sessions continue from where we left off at Wireless Field Day 6. So those of you who were here for WFD 6 or may have seen the videos online will remember that Wireless Field Day 6, the theme was MSPs or managed service providers. And it was all about how do you enable managed services using the AirTight cloud, right? And we did talk about the fact that two key things that enable that, right? You have the single sign-on enabled cloud architecture, which allows customers to access different applications or services that are available in the AirTight cloud seamlessly. So the user logs in once and has access to all the apps. But also, as an MSP, if I'm a managed service provider, I also get access, a very easy view to actually look at the customers that I may be managing, right? And so you move from one customer to the other, the dashboard that we call Mojo Studio basically gives you or puts you in the context of that particular customer, right? The other thing that we actually talked about a lot last time were the AirTight web APIs, right? So the web APIs really provide the extensibility to go beyond the AirTight Wi-Fi VIPs management or even the AirTight guest management that is available through the cloud, right? So you can potentially, whether it's AirTight, whether it's our partners or even customers, can actually start building their own applications and services using these web APIs, right? So what we are going to do in Wireless Field Day 7 is actually provide proof points of extending, taking that forward, of how do you use the single sign-on enabled architecture and how do you take the web APIs to build something that was not possible otherwise, right? So we are super excited about the presentation lineup that we have today. And for the first time, we actually have two external presenters. Glad to have them on board. We have Corey Klein from Noodles and Company, our customer, and we also have Drew Lenz, who a lot of you know as Wireless Nerd, from our partner Frontera Consulting. All right. So with that, we will actually directly jump into the first session, which is called Insta Wi-Fi. Okay. Now, before I actually demonstrate what Insta Wi-Fi is and how it works, let me take a few minutes to give you a little bit of context of where this idea was conceived. So, again, going back to our dashboard, which many of you have seen, from day one, when we got into cloud Wi-Fi and VIPs, our focus was always on large customers. In fact, one of our first few cloud Wi-Fi customers continue to be one of our largest customers today, with close to 17,000 locations. And then obviously, since then there are several customers or chains in different verticals with thousands or hundreds of locations. So that has been really the focus. And one of the key things that enables ease of management is the hierarchical location-based architecture that AirTight has, which allows you to map your entire deployment. Essentially, your entire information architecture is mapped to specific logical groups, whether they are geographical locations or they could be, corporate versus, stores. And then within corporate, you can actually, go on and define your sort of logical context for whatever those contexts you may have. If you have multiple brands, you can actually define multiple brands and then again define the role-based administration. So if you want to have one set of people, your IT staff, to manage one brand versus another to manage a separate brand, you can very easily do that. And from there on, pretty much everything that you do in the dashboard, whether it's management, monitoring, configuring your Wi-Fi, your VIPs policies, as well as reporting, everything is in that context. And what really helps scale this architecture in terms of the ease of management is that when you configure an SSID profile or a Wi-Fi profile or define what we call a device template or VIPs policies, you actually only have to apply it to whatever location at the top that you want it to be applied, and all the child locations are going to inherit that policy automatically, right? You can always go back in and customize a group of locations, but that's how in just in no time you can actually have 10 locations, 100 locations, or tens of thousands of locations configured just like that. However, as we started working, instead of going directly to large customers, we started working with managed service providers, some of our partners. They put us in front of a lot of small and medium businesses, right? And now instead of having one customer with like tens of thousands of locations, you now have possibly hundreds or thousands of customers with 2 locations, 5 locations, 10 locations, right? And the cloud architecture actually scales very well for those kinds of scenarios as well, where you may have multiple such small customers put onto a single multi-tenant virtual instance in the cloud, right? However, while the partners really loved the fact that they could actually now manage all their customers from a single console, they said that this is not really going to work for our customers. And I said, what do you mean? So they mentioned that most of their customers are small businesses, 2, 3, 10 locations, coffee shops, restaurants, small retail chains. You may have a local fitness center or a gym, or you may have a dental clinic, right? And they have no IT staff. Okay, so that's the reason why they are coming to the MSPs to help them manage their IT services, and Wi-Fi is part of that. Now, while they can continue to manage it remotely, whether it's troubleshooting, whether it's VIPs, whether it's any of the monitoring as far as the Wi-Fi network performance is concerned, they wanted a way to simplify and the configuration of the Wi-Fi network and get it up and running in no time. Without those customers, though they do not have an IT staff, they should not be compelled to actually go to a management console, because at the end of the day, while it's easy to use, it's an enterprise product, and there is obviously a lot going on, right? And you are talking about dentists, gym coach, teachers trying to quickly configure their network as soon as they receive an access point, right? And their previous experience with configuring Wi-Fi is a consumer Wi-Fi access point that they put at home or even at their business, because some of the MSPs that we are talking are actually in fact deploying consumer access points as a part of their business Wi-Fi solution. They obviously want to now move to AirTight Wi-Fi because of the ability to centrally manage it, be able to remotely troubleshoot it, provide value-added services or applications using things like the Web API, single sign-on, and so on. But they wanted us to do something more so that they can hand something to their customers, so that the experience of deploying Wi-Fi, though it's enterprise grade, the experience is as simple as a consumer Wi-Fi access point, or possibly simpler, right? So the idea was that I have one access point here. So the idea was to drop ship an access point, and which I'm going to plug in right now. So if a customer sort of gets one access point in the box, or these access points get drop shipped to different locations, maybe 5 locations or 10 locations, they're going to plug this in. And how do you quickly get it up and running without going to the console, right? So that is basically the idea that was led to the design and development of what we call as Insta Wi-Fi. So without further delay, let me actually switch and demo the Insta Wi-Fi itself. So what Insta Wi-Fi is, it is an application, right? Works on any device. I can type it in, and as you can actually see, it is actually a web app, right? It's not a native app, it's a web app. And we made this decision very consciously because a native app makes a lot of sense if you want to have some hooks into the operating system and get some information or pass on some information. But here, all we were doing is using the SSO-enabled cloud and the web APIs to interact with the AirTight cloud. There was nothing that we were doing actually at the operating system. The second thing is that unlike some of the apps that exist that allow you to actually do monitoring of your Wi-Fi network, The focus of this app is very simple. Configuration, get Wi-Fi up and running, and be done with it, right? So let's see now what we can do with it. So as I log in as a user, again, what I want to emphasize is that as a user, obviously I belong to a customer that is an account somewhere in a CRM, which actually provisions the cloud, right? So as a user, when I log in, I am mapped, this instance of the app gets automatically mapped to a particular service instance of the AirTight Wi-Fi in the cloud for that customer, right? And if I have multiple locations, I've specifically given access to a particular person to a location, it will automatically map me to that location. So, as I said, all it does is gives you a very easy way to define your Wi-Fi network. So let's say I'm going to call it.
Does it keep you from creating a WEP-only network?
Sorry?
Does it keep you from creating a WEP-only network?
What do you mean? Can you elaborate?
Creating an SSID where the security is only a static web key. Does it like guide you towards like a more preferred way of securing a wireless network, or can you still do whatever you know?
So right now, yes, you can actually define whether if you want open guest Wi-Fi. I mean, we can do that. Yes.
I was just curious if
Sure.
you're trying to guide down a recommended
That's a good
path.
point.
I might have missed the very beginning, but you used your iPhone to join that SSID that was in the air?
No, so actually, I'm not even connected to that AP at all, right? So I just plugged in the AP,
He's talking to the
It could be
cloud.
on just 3G.
3G, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Exactly. So I could even not be in the same location, right?
Yeah.
The APs get to my location. I'm not there. I'm not returning for a week. I'm on a beach. I can configure the network and have them plug it in. Right. So I'm just going to type in some password. I can select whether I want it to be a NAT or a bridge. I'm going to leave it as it is, and I save it. Okay. So I have a SSID created.
Password's way easier on a keyboard.
Yeah. Exactly. You definitely need to be smarter when you define the actual password. So let's create one guest network. So just to make sure that, I'm not gaming the system in any way or playing any tricks, any suggestions for SSID name? Your favorite, sorry?
Cat Daddy.
Cat Daddy? All right. Let's do Cat Daddy. All right. I'm going to leave it open. It's guest Wi-Fi. I can, leave it open. I can actually go in. If I want to have a captive portal, I can turn it on. My fat finger. Come back. And there it is. Okay. Now I have my SSIDs. I am actually going to just, turn them on. So for those of you who have, experience with the AirTight Management Console, what this is actually doing is through the Web API, it's actually first when I create SSID profiles, it's actually creating an SSID profile back at the back end. When I turn it on, it's actually mapping it to what we call a device template, where it actually maps it to the hardware. Now, there's a lot of, to really simplify this, what we have done is built a lot of logic at the back end to avoid throwing a lot of choices to the end user. For example, doesn't matter which model of access point you may be using. If you are using NAT, don't want to get into, telling us exactly what IP addresses you need. It's actually going to look at the various private IP address pools, look at, make sure does not conflict, and then assign that pool of IP addresses, right? So once you do that, it's actually, in fact, we can see in a matter of minutes. Oops. Let's actually go to the settings and let's see if our Wi-Fi SSIDs are up and running.
Cat Daddy.
Cat Daddy and Torp demo. All right. Feel free to connect if you want, access the internet. Yeah. Done. logged out. Now the beauty is that it not only allows you to create an SSID or set of SSIDs, it's actually allowing you to automatically define your WIPS policies. So WIPS is often looked at something that you go into a console, define signatures, do a lot of settings till you hopefully get it right. Doesn't work that way with AirTight WIPS. It has automatically actually gone back through the web APIs based on the SSIDs that you created, based on whether it was a private SSID, whether it was a guest SSID. It's actually going to create what we call as the authorized WLAN policies in the backend, which will trigger, kick in all the goodness of AirTight WIPS, automatic device classification, and which means that you can now, right there, you can actually go ahead and schedule reports. So if I want to schedule, let's say I'm a retailer interested in PCI compliance, I can go in, interested in PCI 3.0, can select whatever format I want, leave it as PDF for now. I can do it recurring, one time, and so on, right? And I can have it actually email that report to my inbox or have it archived so that I can actually go in and see it later. So in short, that's Insta Wi-Fi. It's quick, easy, and simple. Thank you. Any questions? Comments?
What binds the AP to your account? Is it order number and then map to serial number? And
right, very good question. Yeah, so we have multiple workflows. So you can have it pre-provisioned from AirTight, where once, let's say, an order comes into the CRM, we have automatic sync up with the CRM to what we showed as the customer provisioning portal last time in Wireless Field 6, which actually allows you to then register devices to a customer. Now you can do it at the back end through the cloud provisioning team, or you actually have the ability to self-register those devices as well. Okay. So you can self-register, or if you're working with a partner like an MSP who has stocked up AirTight APs, you don't have to register every device. You can, if you have a big box, you are shipping like 10 APs or 20 APs to one customer, you just scan with a Bluetooth scanner. You just scan one ID. So every box, the big box also goes with a unique ID, and that maps all the MAC addresses inside, and so that the customer gets those APs.
The question is, who wants to know how can we get to try Insta Wi-Fi open beta? And question.
Sure. So I think we are actually going to open it for beta in the coming weeks. So we'll keep you posted. Stay tuned. And if you will need an account with the Mojo Studio, the single sign-on dashboard that I showed you. But once you do that, I think you can get access to Insta Wi-Fi.
So, a quick question. This is just another interface on the AirTight cloud.
Correct.
Already. Okay.
Correct. So it's kind of if you have a set of customers, don't want to get them overwhelmed with all the bells and whistles in an enterprise product. This is a stripped down version, like a consumer Wi-Fi. Yeah, get it up and running.
Is there any licensing or cost difference between this and the? No.
Never.